Looking back, I should have seen it coming. The signs were there scattered like breadcrumbs through the last few months of our relationship. But when you've been with someone for 3 years, you don't want to believe the worst. You make excuses, you brush off the doubts, you tell yourself it's just your imagination. That was my mistake. At first, it was little things. Sarah started working late more often. Not unusual during busy seasons, but then came the new perfume, a scent I didn't recognize. Then, clothes I had never seen before appeared in our closet, and her phone, her sacred, untouchable phone, was always clutched tightly in her hand or face down on the table. I'm not the jealous type, never have been, but something felt off. The way she'd pull away when I hugged her while she was texting. The way she'd step outside to take calls, always claiming they were work-related. The constant girls' nights with people whose names I had never heard before. Then, last Tuesday, I was folding laundry when her phone lit up on the coffee table. A message preview from someone named Ryan popped up. Miss you already. Last night was... The rest was cut off, but my stomach dropped. I didn't want to be the guy who snoops through his girlfriend's phone. But at that moment, it felt like the universe was screaming at me to wake up. When she got home that night, I decided to be direct. She was in the kitchen making a smoothie, acting like nothing was wrong. The sound of the blender filled our apartment as I leaned against the doorway, watching her. "Who's Ryan?" I asked when she finally turned it off. She froze, just for a second. Then she did something I wasn't expecting. She smiled. Not her usual warm, teasing smile. This was different. Cold, almost. Triumphant. "Wondering when you'd finally catch on, Ethan," she said, taking a slow sip. "Ryan's my boss. And yeah, I've been sleeping with him for the past 2 months." She said it so casually, like she was telling me what she had for lunch. No guilt, no shame, just satisfaction. "I needed a real man," she continued, smirking. "Someone who knows what he wants. Not someone who spends his weekends playing video games and talking about his big ideas that never go anywhere." 3 years together. And this was how she saw me? I stared at her, my mind racing. But I didn't feel anger or sadness, just clarity. "Does Emma know?" I asked, thinking of our mutual friend, the one who had introduced us. Sarah's smirk widened. "Oh, she's known for weeks." My stomach twisted. "Most of our friends know," she added, setting down her glass. "They understand that Ryan can actually provide a future, not just dreams and excuses." That hit harder than the cheating itself. These were people we had spent birthdays, holidays, vacations with. People the first thought were our friends. They had all known. They had watched this unfold. Probably laughed about it behind my back. I pulled out my phone and opened the group chat I had with Emma and Matt. "Is this true? You all knew?" Matt's response came first. "Bro, you're a great guy, but Sarah deserves someone more established. Don't take it personally." Emma chimed in right after. "We didn't want to hurt you, but maybe this is the wake-up call you need." I looked up from my phone to find Sarah watching me, waiting. She wanted a reaction, a scene, a dramatic meltdown she could tell everyone about later. Instead, I smiled. A real, genuine smile that caught her off guard. Without a word, I turned and walked to our bedroom. Grabbed my go bag one I always kept packed for weekend trips, along with my laptop and keys. When I passed through the kitchen again, she was still standing there, but the smirk was slipping. "Where are you going?" she asked. "Out." I paused at the door. "And Sarah?" "Keep the apartment. I'm sure Ryan can help with the rent." I heard her start to say something as I closed the door behind me, but I didn't stop to listen. My phone was already buzzing, probably our so-called friends trying to explain themselves. I turned it off and just drove. I didn't know where I was going. But for the first time in months, I felt like I was heading in the right direction. The next morning, I turned my phone back on after 12 hours of silence. 32 missed calls. 47 unread texts. Most were from Sarah. Some from Matt and Emma. A few from numbers I didn't recognize. But what really caught my attention was the storm of notifications from social media. Sarah had been busy. According to her Instagram story, I was a controlling, jealous boyfriend who monitored her every move. Apparently, I had emotionally manipulated her for years, isolated her from her friends, and threw a violent tantrum when she finally stood up for herself. Each post had hundreds of sympathetic comments, including ones from people I had once considered friends. Then came the real kicker. A tearful video where she claimed I had financially abused her by making her split all our bills 50/50ths while I hoarded my money. Rich, considering she earned more than me and insisted on that arrangement herself. And then, the text that changed everything. A message from Lauren, a former coworker I hadn't spoken to in years. Hey, you might want to check your email. Something's going around the office about you. My stomach twisted as I logged in. Sure enough, there it was, a company-wide email about creating a safe workplace environment, with a thinly veiled reference to recent concerning behaviors from certain employees. No names mentioned, but the timing wasn't subtle. I should have been furious. Maybe I should have fought back immediately. Instead, I felt something else, curiosity. How far would she take this? Pretty damn far, as it turned out. And that's when I realized if she wanted a war, she was about to get one. I sat in my car for a long time, staring at that email. My company wasn't stupid. They wouldn't send something like this without reason, which meant Sarah had been talking, spinning her web of lies further than just social media. I exhaled slowly. I wasn't going to panic. Not yet. Instead, I drove to a small motel on the outskirts of town. Not the most glamorous place, but it was clean, and the owner, an older guy named Pete, seemed decent. He even knocked $20 off my weekly rate when I told him I was going through a breakup. Been there, he said with a knowing look. Some people will burn down a whole house just to make sure you don't get to keep the porch. I didn't turn my phone back on for 2 days. When I finally did, the flood of messages was overwhelming. Sarah, Ethan, please talk to me. I need to explain. Matt, dude, why'd you just disappear? You're overreacting. Emma, look, we didn't handle this right, but can we talk? And then there were the voicemails. I listened to one from Sarah out of morbid curiosity. She was crying. Ethan, I don't know why you're doing this. Why are you making me out to be the bad guy? You weren't enough for me, okay? I needed more. That's not a crime. But now you're trying to ruin my life. Just call me, please. I almost laughed. I was ruining her life? She cheated. She lied. She turned our friends against me. And now she was playing the victim. Classic. Then, a message from Lauren popped up. Call me when you can. You're going to want to hear this. I dialed her number. She picked up on the first ring. Your ex is out for blood, she said bluntly. Yeah, I figured that out, I muttered. No, Ethan. You don't get it. People at work that you were emotionally abusive. That you controlled her finances and made her feel unsafe. My grip tightened on the phone. What? It's worse than that, Lauren continued. She's been talking to HR, dropping hints that she might need to file a formal complaint against you. And Ryan? He's backing her up. That stopped me cold. Ryan, her boss, the guy she cheated with. What's his angle? I asked. Lauren hesitated. I think he's covering his own ass. Word is, he's done this before, gotten involved with younger employees, then found ways to push out anyone who might expose him. I leaned back against the headboard of the motel bed, my mind racing. So if she goes through with this complaint, you could lose your job, Lauren said quietly. I exhaled through my nose. Okay. Ethan, I'm not going to roll over for this, I cut in. She wants to lie? Fine. Let's see how she handles the truth. Lauren was silent for a moment. Then, to my surprise, she let out a soft laugh. Good, she said. I was hoping you'd say that. The next day, I met Lauren at a coffee shop near our office. She looked around nervously before sitting down. HR hasn't acted on anything yet, she said in a hushed voice. But it's only a matter of time. You need to get ahead of this. I nodded. How? She slid a flash drive across the table. I've been keeping tabs. Screenshots, emails, messages, proof that Sarah was the one pushing you away, that she wasn't some helpless victim. I picked up the drive, turning it over in my fingers. Why are you helping me? Lauren shrugged. Because I know what it's like to be on the receiving end of this kind of bullshit. And because Ryan's a creep. He thinks he's untouchable, but he's not. I gave her a long look. So this is personal for you, too. A small smirk played at her lips. Let's just say I like seeing arrogant people get what's coming to them. I slipped the drive into my pocket. Then let's make sure they do. That night, I started digging. I went through the files Lauren gave me, screenshots of Sarah flirting with Ryan over company email, proof that she had initiated their relationship, messages bragging about how easy it was to manipulate him. But the real goldmine? The recordings. Sarah, talking to Emma about how she planned to milk this breakup for sympathy, how she loved the attention, how she was going to make Ethan regret ever thinking he was on my level. It was disgusting, but also perfect. By the time I finished going through everything, I had a plan. Step 1, control the narrative. I drafted an email to HR, attaching some of the more damning evidence. I kept it professional, factual, just enough to plant the seed of doubt. Step 2, let Sarah bury herself. I knew she wouldn't stop. She'd keep pushing, keep lying. The trick was to let her think she was winning until it was too late to backtrack. And step 3? Well, that part was going to be fun. The next morning, I walked into work like nothing was wrong, smiled at my coworkers, nodded at my manager, pretended I hadn't spent the night preparing for war. When I got to my desk, I saw Sarah standing by the break room, deep in conversation with Ryan. She glanced up and met my eyes, and smirked. I smirked right back. She had no idea what was coming. The office felt different that morning. Not because anything had changed yet, but because I had changed. I wasn't walking in as the guy blindsided by betrayal. I was walking in as the guy who knew what was coming. And Sarah? She thought she had already won. She leaned against the break room counter, laughing at something Ryan had said. When she caught my gaze, her smirk widened like she was daring me to react. I didn't. I just walked to my desk, set my bag down, and got to work. Step 1 was already in motion. My email to HR had been sent before I walked into the building. It was professional, straightforward, and packed with just enough evidence to make them think before they blindly took Sarah's side. Now I just had to wait. By lunchtime, the first domino had fallen. Lauren texted me. HR just called Sarah in. She looked pissed. I smirked at my phone. It wasn't an official complaint. HR was just checking in based on some conflicting reports. But it was enough to rattle her. Enough to remind her that this wasn't a one-sided story she got to control. When she returned to her desk, I watched her slam her bag down, typing furiously on her phone. Less than a minute later, Matt messaged me. "Dude, what the hell are you doing?" I stared at the message for a second before replying. "What do you mean? Sarah just told us you're trying to ruin her life." I actually laughed at that one. She's doing a pretty good job of that on her own. No response. Interesting. The next 2 days passed in a slow, steady buildup of tension. Sarah doubled down on playing the victim. She told anyone who would listen that I was harassing her, that I was obsessed with her, that I was dangerous. But the cracks were already starting to show. For one, she had overplayed her hand. She was trying too hard, spinning too many lies at once. And the people who weren't completely brainwashed by her sob story, they were starting to hesitate. Emma, for example. She stopped texting me accusations, stopped liking Sarah's dramatic posts. And when I walked past her in the hallway, she actually looked away as if she was ashamed. Doubt was creeping in. Good. But then something happened that I wasn't expecting. A private message from someone I barely knew. "Hey, I don't know if you remember me, but I used to work at your company. Can we talk?" It's about Sarah and Ryan. That got my attention. We met at a small diner that evening. She was nervous, kept glancing around like she was afraid of being seen. "I almost didn't message you," she admitted, stirring her coffee. "But when I saw what Sarah was doing, I couldn't stay quiet." I leaned forward. "What do you know?" She exhaled. "I was in the same position as you. A few years ago. Only I didn't fight back." My stomach tightened. "Ryan did the same thing to me," she continued. "He got close, made promises. Then when things started getting messy, he threw me under the bus. I was labeled unstable, unprofessional. Eventually, I had to leave." I stared at her, something ice cold settling in my chest. "And Sarah?" She gave a humorless laugh. "She helped him do it." I should have been shocked. But somehow, I wasn't. "She's done this before?" I asked. The woman nodded. "She plays innocent, but she's just as manipulative as he is. And now? It's your turn." I sat back, absorbing that. It made too much sense. The speed at which she had turned on me, the way she weaponized people's emotions. She knew what she was doing. I looked at the woman across from me. Why are you telling me this? A shadow passed over her face, because no one warned me. The next morning, I woke up early. My mind was clear, focused. Sarah and Ryan weren't just liars, they were repeat offenders. And now, they were about to face someone who wasn't going to roll over and take it. By noon, I had gathered everything, every screenshot, every recorded conversation, every piece of evidence that showed exactly what they were. Then, I made two moves. First, I sent an anonymous tip to the company's board. A neat little package detailing Ryan's pattern of behavior, complete with multiple testimonies from former employees. Second, I made a call, not to HR, not to my friends, to Ryan's wife. Ryan's wife answered on the third ring. Hello? Her voice was smooth, controlled, the kind of tone that belonged to someone used to handling problems efficiently. Hi, is this Olivia? I asked, keeping my voice calm. Yes. Who is this? I hesitated for just a second, then went for it. My name is Ethan. I think we need to talk about your husband. There was silence on the other end. A long, heavy silence. Then, finally, she spoke. Go on. I hadn't expected her to be so composed. Most people, when faced with something like this, would either panic or hang up. Olivia just waited. So I told her everything. I kept it simple, factual. I told her about Ryan's relationship with Sarah, how it wasn't the first time he had done this, how I had evidence, how I wasn't the only one he had tried to destroy to cover his tracks. When I finished, there was another pause. Then she let out a slow breath. I see. That was it. No outburst. No denial. Just acknowledgement. I take it this isn't a surprise, I said carefully. No, she admitted. It's not. That threw me off. Then why are you still with him? I asked before I could stop myself. A bitter laugh. Oh, I've been done with him for a long time, but some things take careful planning. It took me a second to catch her meaning. She wasn't in the dark. She wasn't a victim. She was waiting. And now? I had just given her the last piece she needed. I assume you can send me this proof? She asked. I exhaled. Yeah, I'll send everything. Good, she said. And Ethan? Yeah? You might want to keep your distance from Sarah. She's not as smart as she thinks she is, but she's dangerous when cornered. The line went dead. The next morning, I walked into work like nothing had happened. Sarah was already there, typing away at her computer like she wasn't trying to destroy my life. Ryan was in his office, door shut, probably thinking everything was under control. I almost felt bad for them, almost. By lunchtime, the first cracks started to show. Lauren texted me. Something's up. HR just pulled Ryan into a meeting. I kept my expression neutral as I read it. Then, 5 minutes later, Sarah's phone buzzed on her desk. She glanced at the screen, froze. Then, without a word, she grabbed it and walked out. I watched her go, taking a slow sip of my coffee. It was starting. By the time the workday ended, Sarah was rattled. Her usual confidence was gone. She barely spoke to anyone. And when she left, she didn't bother with her usual fake, casual goodbyes. I waited exactly 10 minutes before walking over to Ryan's office. His door was still closed. His blinds shut. I knocked. No answer. I knocked again. Still nothing. Finally, I just opened the door. Ryan was sitting at his desk, staring at his computer screen like his whole world had just collapsed. Slowly, he looked up at me. What did you do? He asked, his voice hoarse. I just smiled. What do you mean? His hands clenched into fists. Don't play games with me. Olivia. She sent me a message. Told me she knows. I leaned against the doorframe. Knows what exactly? Ryan's face twisted in anger. You set me up. I tilted my head. No, I just told the truth. You set yourself up. His jaw tightened. He looked like he wanted to throw something. You don't understand what you've done, he hissed. Oh, I think I do, I folded my arms. You should start packing up your office, Ryan. I don't think you'll be here much longer. His face went pale. You can't prove anything, can't I? I pulled out my phone and tapped the screen. The audio started playing Sarah's own voice, bragging about how she and Ryan had orchestrated everything, how they had done this before. Ryan went still. I let the recording play for another few seconds, then stopped it. HR already has a copy, I said. So does your wife. And the board? You might want to get ahead of this while you still have a shred of control. Ryan didn't speak, didn't even move. I turned to leave. Then, at the last second, I glanced back. Oh, and Ryan? I said casually. Tell Sarah I said hi. And then I walked out. That night, I got another text. This one wasn't from Lauren or Olivia. It was from Sarah. You think this is over? I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I smirked. She was scared. Good. Because this was just getting started. Sarah's message lingered on my screen. You think this is over? I leaned back against the cheap motel pillows and exhaled. No surprise there. Sarah had spent years manipulating people into giving her what she wanted. She wasn't the type to go down quietly. But what she didn't understand, what she had never understood, was that I had already won. She just hadn't realized it yet. I set my phone down and closed my eyes. Let her stew. Let her plan whatever desperate move she thought would save her. It wouldn't matter. By the morning, the storm would be in full swing. When I walked into the office, the energy was different. People whispered in corners. Eyes flicked toward Ryan's office, then away. The tension was thick, humming under the surface. Lauren caught up to me before I even reached my desk. You're not going to believe this, she muttered under her breath. Try me. She handed me her phone. It was an email from the CEO effective immediately. Ryan Mitchell has resigned from his position. I scrolled down. We take workplace integrity very seriously and appreciate the courage of those who come forward. If any employees have concerns regarding professional conduct in the workplace, HR is available for confidential discussions. I felt a slow grin spread across my face. Ryan didn't even fight it. He must have realized there was no way out. Olivia had him in a vice grip, and once HR got involved, it was checkmate. What about Sarah? I asked, handing the phone back. Lauren smirked. Haven't seen her all morning. Interesting. I walked to my desk, sat down, and waited. 10 minutes passed. Then 15. Then Sarah walked in. She looked rough. Her usual confidence was gone, replaced by something desperate. Her eyes darted around, like she was expecting an ambush. She stormed toward me. We need to talk, she hissed, leaning over my desk. I leaned back in my chair, taking my time before responding. I'm at work, Sarah, I said casually. Not a good time. Her jaw clenched. I know you did this. I raised an eyebrow. Did what? Her hands curled into fists. You set Ryan up. I laughed. Actually laughed. Ryan set himself up. Sarah's face flushed red. You think you're so smart, she spat. But you don't get it, Ethan. You never got it. I just tilted my head, waiting. She leaned in closer. I made you, she whispered, voice sharp. Without me, you're nothing. That almost made me laugh again. You know what's funny, Sarah? I said. That's exactly what Ryan thought too. Her expression flickered just for a second. Then she scoffed and straightened up. This isn't over, she snapped. Then she turned and stalked off. I didn't stop her, because she was right. It wasn't over. Not for her. That evening, I got another text from a number I didn't recognize. I think we should meet. There was an address attached. A small cafe across town. No name, but I had a feeling I already knew who it was. When I walked in, Olivia was already sitting at a corner table, sipping tea like she had all the time in the world. She glanced up, gestured to the chair across from her. Sit. I did. She studied me for a moment before speaking. Ryan's done. I nodded. I saw. She smiled slightly. I made sure of it. I believed her. I wanted to meet you, she continued, because I think you and I have a mutual problem. I leaned forward. Sarah. She nodded. She's desperate, Olivia said, and desperate people make mistakes. We should make sure her next one doesn't affect either of us. I exhaled. What do you suggest? She took a slow sip of tea. We give her an out. That caught me off guard. An out? Olivia set her cup down. Sarah's fighting because she still thinks she has something to lose. But if we make sure she doesn't, she'll cut her losses and run. I considered that. And how do we do that? Olivia smiled. We show her just how much worse things could get. The next morning, I sent Sarah an email. No anger, no threats, just simple, cold facts. I laid out everything. The evidence I had on her, the testimonies from people she had screwed over, the fact that Olivia was prepared to drag her into Ryan's divorce proceedings if she didn't disappear. Then, at the bottom, a simple sentence, "Walk away, while you still can." An hour later, she responded, "Fine." That was it. No fight, no last-minute scheme, just surrender. By the end of the day, Sarah had deleted her social media. She sent HR her resignation. And just like that, she was gone. It was over. For the first time in months, I felt free. And damn, it felt good. Sarah was gone, not just from the company, but from my life. Her resignation came through by the end of the day, short and impersonal. No goodbye messages, no dramatic exit. Just a quiet departure, like she had never been there at all. For someone who had spent so much time trying to control the narrative, it was almost poetic how quickly she disappeared once she realized she had no leverage left. And Ryan? Well, his story wasn't over yet. A week after his resignation, news spread that his wife had filed for divorce. Olivia didn't waste time. She took her evidence straight to her lawyer and made sure there was nothing left for him. The house? Hers. The assets? Frozen. His career? Finished. The man who had once looked down on me, who had smirked like he was untouchable, was now a cautionary tale. Lauren sent me a text when she found out. Guess Ryan should have read the fine print before marrying a lawyer. I chuckled. Olivia had been playing the long game, and she had won. As for the people who took Sarah's side, they tried to backtrack. Matt sent me a long-winded apology about how he should have listened and how he got caught up in the wrong version of events. Emma followed with something similar, claiming she had felt pressured and that she had never really believed Sarah. I didn't reply to either of them. Because here's the thing about betrayal: once it happens, the damage is done. People like Matt and Emma had chosen to believe Sarah, chosen to turn their backs on me when it mattered most. And now that the truth was out, they wanted to pretend none of it had happened? No thanks. Let them sit with their guilt. One evening, Pete, the owner of the motel I had been staying at, knocked on my door. "You ever think about moving out to here?" he asked casually, leaning against the doorframe. I smirked. "You kicking me out?" "Nah," he said, "but I think you're done hiding." He wasn't wrong. I had been staying at that motel like I was waiting for something, some final sign that it was okay to move on. But I didn't need a sign. I already knew. The next morning, I signed a lease for a new apartment, a place that was mine, not a shared space filled with ghosts of the past. And when I moved in, it felt like a fresh start, like I had finally closed the book on this whole mess. The last loose thread came 2 weeks later, a message request on Instagram from Sarah. I almost didn't open it, but curiosity won. "I hope you're happy." That was all she wrote. No apology, no explanation, just bitterness. I stared at the message for a moment before deleting it. Because the truth was, I was happy. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't need revenge. I had something better. I had peace. And that was the best revenge of all. Story 2. When he saw my concern, Tom softened his tone and said, "It's just for tax purposes. You often talk about managing our money wisely. For our family, this is the best course of action." He took my hand across the counter, but there was something off about the way he touched it. Perhaps it was because his fingers didn't fit around mine as tightly as they once did. Or perhaps it was the faint quiver in his voice that I heard. I stood looking at the papers in our kitchen. My heart was thumping hard against my chest as he slid across our marble countertop. The official letterhead on the house transfer paperwork stood out against the white background, as if to taunt me. After a long day, the twins were at last asleep upstairs. And here I was, with my 4-year husband giving me what felt like an ultimatum. "You can call me Caitlin Wilson. I work as a doctor at Houston Methodist Hospital, and I'm 38 years old." 2 years prior to meeting Tom, I purchased this lovely Victorian home in the Heights neighborhood. With a great deal of diligent planning and the money I saved during my residency years. Now, standing in my ideal kitchen that I'd rebuilt myself, I was being pressed to sign away my largest investment. You would see why this makes sense if you were genuinely concerned about our marriage. "In between your crazy hospital hours and your constant exhaustion," Tom added, moving the papers closer to me, "this family is being held together by me." I paused because of something in his tone, even though his words hurt. I had never heard it have such a sharp edge. Our twins, Emma and Ethan, were sleeping soundly in their cribs when I looked at the baby monitor on the counter. They looked just like me when they were 2 years old. Same dark curls and olive skin. In order to give them every chance in life, I also worked multiple shifts at the hospital because of them. Tom had never seemed to get that my commitment to my work was not motivated by ambition. It was about providing for our children's future. I withdrew my hand and said, I don't know, Tom. My security is this house. I purchased it before we were married. I noticed something flicker across his face as I spoke. Was it anger? Angry? Whatever it was, it vanished in an instant, to be replaced by what appeared to be routine worry. That night, as I lay awake in bed, his words kept replaying in my thoughts. But something else was resonating too. I couldn't entirely suppress the voice of caution. I was preparing for my shift at the hospital the following morning. There was something about Tom's actions that bothered me. Lately, he had been different, more distant, often checking his phone, working additional hours at his marketing company. I had dismissed it as his work-related stress. Now, though, along with his abrupt movement around the home, my medical intuition was warning me that something wasn't quite right. Your jacket was delivered to the dry cleaners by me, Tom said as I hurried around the kitchen, attempting to pack the twins' daycare bags while scarfing down a slice of toast. You may thank me later. His smile seemed forced and he barely looked up from his phone. Just 6 months ago, he would have been helping me with the twins' luggage, making sure I ate a healthy breakfast before my shift. As I buckled Emma and Ethan into their car seats, I kept an eye on him. He had resumed going to the gym and had a bounce in his step that had been absent for years. Little adjustments that, although seemingly innocuous on their own, combined to create a picture I wasn't entirely sure I wanted to witness. I contacted my buddy Nina, who practiced real estate law, in between patients at work. Something doesn't feel right, I informed her, slipping into an empty exam room. He is adamantly advocating for this transfer, claiming it is for tax considerations, Nina interrupted. Caitlin, you would not receive any tax advantages if you just transferred the house into his name. If anything, the fact that you purchased it before to marriage would make matters more difficult. My blood froze. I hadn't done my research since I was too preoccupied with work and the twins. Wasn't that what Tom had expected? Listen to me attentively, Nina said, her voice serious. Don't sign anything. I don't want to frighten you, but I've seen this before. Property transfers are rarely pushed for by men unless they are part of a larger scheme. During a brief interval between patients that afternoon, I did something I had never done before. I looked over our phone logs. For months, Tom had been calling the same number a lot. When I performed a reverse lookup and a name came up, my hands shook. Martinez, Destiny. A short search on social media turned up a stunning woman in her mid-20s whose check-in times coincided with Tom's late work evenings. As I looked through her pictures, I stopped at one from 2 weeks earlier, and my stomach turned. She was at a captioned real estate agency. There will be significant changes soon. A new chapter. Blessed. I shut the door to my office and sat quietly. My thoughts are racing. Years of medical training had taught me to trust my instincts when something seemed wrong. Those same instincts were now telling me that I had to defend my kids and myself. For the first time in months, I left work early that evening, rather of going to the creche to pick up the twins. I headed directly to a covert electronics store, Nina had suggested. When I described what I required, the old man behind the counter hardly blinked. A high-quality recording gadget tiny enough to hide in my kitchen. Protect yourself, he added softly while demonstrating how to use it for me. Their own statements are the greatest proof. Like every other night, I arrived home before Tom arrived to set up the equipment and begin supper. He seems taken aback by my presence. There aren't any hospital emergencies today. His eyes were keen, yet his tone was casual as he inquired. I hoped we could discuss the house transfer in greater detail. As I stirred the spaghetti sauce, I spoke. What you mentioned has been on my mind. His face lighted up with badly disguised triumph, and I saw his reflection in the kitchen glass. He approached me from behind and said, I knew you'd come around. Kate, you're making the right decision. Our family will benefit most from this. During supper, his emphasis on family made me shiver. I listened to him speak, taking notes as he described his complex strategy for how the move would help us. He had been preparing this for months, and I could see with sickening clarity how deliberate and careful each lie was. I watched the twins slumber in their dark nursery after putting them to bed. As Ethan kicked off his blanket, Emma held on to her favorite stuffed giraffe. As usual, I was filled with protective wrath as I gazed at their placid features. Tom hadn't relied on a mother's instinct to defend her cubs, no matter what game he was playing. The days that followed were a haze of meticulous planning. Following Nina's suggestion, I started moving my share of our money to a different account, obtained new credit cards in my name alone, and made copies of all our financial records. Tom's steady breathing accompanied me while I lay awake every night, wondering when precisely my spouse had turned into a stranger. After a week, Tom brought home the final transfer documents that he had already signed. Sliding them across the counter, he replied, "Just your signature. The exact area where everything had all began. After that, we can move on from this." I grabbed the pen. Despite the adrenaline pumping through my veins, my hand remained steady. I held the pen above the signature line as Tom watched carefully. I could see everything so vividly at that instant. His impatience, his barely concealed excitement, the way he kept glancing at his phone as if expecting a message. "In fact," I said, setting down the pen, "I believe we should discuss destiny first." His cheeks lost color so quickly that I nearly burst out laughing. However, this was not amusing. I was equipped with proof, resolute anger, and a mother's rage, and this was the start of a fight. "What are you discussing?" Tom sputtered, but he was immediately identifiable by his face. His studied calm cracked as he grabbed automatically for his phone. "Who is Fate?" I took out my own phone and browsed through the screenshots I had meticulously gathered. "Destiny Martinez, 26 years old, works at your business. For the last 4 months, you've been going to Lorenzo's for lunch 3 times a week with her. The same place where you proposed to me, by the way. Well done." Tom's face changed from surprise to rage. "Have you been watching me? Defending myself?" I corrected, keeping my voice calm despite my pounding heart. "In the same way that you have been safeguarding our tax status via this house transfer. Correct." I used to find his anxious habit of running his hands through his hair charming, but now he plopped down heavily on one of the kitchen stools. "It isn't what you believe." "Really?" "Because I believe you are attempting to move into my house by stealing it. Your girlfriend?" Earlier that week, I played the recording. As he reassured Destiny that everything was proceeding as planned and that they would soon be reunited, his voice filled the kitchen. Emma's gentle whine crackled on the twins' monitor. When Tom looked above, I briefly noticed a look of remorse on his face. But it wasn't shame about betraying his family. It was remorse at getting caught. "You don't understand," he said, his tone altering to the placating one he employed with tough clients. "Things between us haven't been right for a long time. You're in the hospital all the time. You are hardly known by the twins. You dare not." I cut him off, my voice quiet but fierce. "You have no right to use our kids as an excuse for this. I strive to provide them with a future. What justification do you have for ruining their present?" Abruptly, his face flushed with rage, he stood up. "Don't you think you're really smart? The doctor is outstanding, always one step ahead. However, you are unaware of what it's like to live in your shadow. Destiny values me because I'm the guy who married up. She gets it. She is aware that you are attempting to take my house. I cut you off. The home I purchased before to meeting you, the home where our kids first stepped foot. Our attorney stated, 'Your attorney? Behind my back, I fixed the one you've been meeting with. I was warned about him by Nina. He is well known for assisting husbands in concealing assets during separations.'" Tom's face became white. "Did you speak with Nina?" "I talk to a lot of people, Tom. Despite my work-related busyness, I'm not a moron. I took out another stack of documents that I had recovered, including bank statements, phone logs, and emails. Really, you thought I wouldn't figure it out? That I would just sign away the house where my kids live? Because you batted your eyes and suggested taxes?" The baby monitor crackled again, this time with Ethan's wail, joining his sister's. Tom started towards the stairs, but I stopped him. "Don't worry," I answered icily. "I'll look after our kids. You can take care of explaining to Destiny why her new chapter is going to have a different setting than she planned." I heard Tom's phone ding as I was going upstairs to console our twins. It was likely Destiny, who was wondering why her hero was running late for their meeting. Let her wonder. I had more pressing concerns, such as safeguarding my children's future from the man who was meant to assist me in creating it. It's not over yet, Tom yelled after me as I reached the top of the steps. You're making a huge mistake. I paused, looking down at him from the landing. No, Tom. I made the grave error of assuming that I wouldn't defend what was rightfully mine. Emma and Ethan needed me in the nursery, so I turned my back on his flushed face and went there. When I woke up the following morning, Tom was gone. Most likely stayed overnight at Destiny's as I prepared the twins for nursery. Nina texted me, and my phone chimed. He has seen his attorney. It's time to act quickly. I was ready for this already. During my lunch break, I met with James Cooper, the divorce attorney. Nina had suggested. His workspace was cozy and inviting, not at all like the bleak business settings I had anticipated. Dr. Wilson, he replied, going over the proof I had collected. I have to admit, I'm amazed. The majority of my clients contact me after the incident. We have everything we need from you to overcome this. I had good instincts, I said, observing as he analyzed the videos. Better than good, he grinned. These recordings, along with the documentation of his discussions with that other lawyer, provide unmistakable proof of his intent to deceive. Let's simply say that deliberate asset concealing is not well received by judges. Tom's messages flooded my phone while we spoke strategy. We must speak. You are acting irrationally. Consider the twins. More urgent than the last message. He's becoming aware that his scheme is failing. James watched. Be ready. They frequently become nasty at this point. He was correct. Tom's good guy persona had fallen apart by the time he returned home that evening. He hissed, You think you're so smart, charging into the kitchen as I was preparing dinner for the twins. However, you've simply made everything worse. On this, Destiny and I could have been reasonable. Please stay at the guest house and be kind to the children. I couldn't resist laughing, which made him even more angry. My own house's guest house. Our house? Emma jumped in her high chair when he yelled, I've spent 4 years here. Crazy? Ethan's little face contorted in concern as he questioned, Dad is simply worn out. I reassured Tom, warning him, He's going to be gone for a while, you see. I am like hell. Tom's voice was softer now, but he still snarled, conscious of the twins watching. You are, in fact, taking another paper out of my purse, I stated gently. This restraining order is only in effect temporarily. After you texted me threatening me, my lawyer filed it this morning. The time allotted for packing is 1 hour. This is not possible. His face was pale as he whispered, I did it already. Tom, too. I slowly looked into his eyes. You're welcome, Destiny. However, this is the house you attempted to rob your kids of. I own that. And I'll fight you with everything I've got if you think I won't. Obviously, you didn't know me at all. He stood there, jaws expanding and shutting like a fish out of water. His face was etched with the disintegration of his flawless plan as the truth of his circumstances finally set in. An hour later, I observed Tom pack his things into his vehicle from the window of the nursery. He continued to stare back at the home, as though he was still in shock that his scheme had failed so horribly. Behind me, blissfully oblivious to their father's departure, the twins played calmly with their blocks. Goodbye. Emma saw me at the window and inquired, Yes, dear. For the time being, Daddy is saying goodbye. I gave her a tight embrace. I let the smell of her baby shampoo ground me as I breathed it in. The next weeks were a haze of hospital shifts and legal sessions. Through his attorney, Tom launched a full-scale assault, seeking half of everything, including the mansion. But James was ready for him. Did you see his face when we showed the videos in court? James inquired at one of our sessions. He never imagined that you may be smarter than him, even though he felt he was quite brilliant. The proof was incriminating. We had discovered something much more troubling than the fact that he had intended to cheat me of my premarital fortune. To pay for his extravagant dates with Destiny, Tom had been stealing from his marketing company. Everything was discovered by our forensic accountant, James said, laying out bank statements on his desk. For months, he has been cooking the books, most likely to keep up the lifestyle he pledged. Fate. I didn't miss the irony. Tom had always grumbled about feeling inferior to my accomplishments and living in my shadow. He had been causing his own demise. When the embezzlement was discovered by Tom's firm, they filed charges. It turned out that Destiny was not interested in a boyfriend who was being charged with a crime. She texted him to break up. One night, when he arrived at the house intoxicated, he waved his phone and begged to come home. So I knew. You subjected me to this? I had to contact the cops when he yelled from the front garden. Everything is damaged by you. I had an odd mixture of relief and sympathy as the cops escorted him away. I no longer recognized the man I'd married and the father of my kids. Or perhaps he had always been that person. I hadn't noticed since I was too busy. I was surprised by how quickly the divorce was finalized. Tom couldn't afford a drawn-out legal battle because he was having legal issues with his firm. He agreed to more advantageous custody arrangements in exchange for the house signing away any claim. Twice weekly visits under supervision. You've done a fantastic job with this, Nina informed me over coffee, weeks after everything had settled. The majority would have crumbled. Emma and Ethan were playing in my backyard. My house, my triumph. For them, I had to be strong, I said. And to be honest, Tom's greatest error and doom was to underestimate me. Nina inquired. Do you know what became of her? Recalling the previous tidbit of gossip I had heard, I grinned. It seems that she is currently seeing her real estate agent, who was meant to assist her in moving into my home. The irony made us both laugh. Ethan inquired when I was putting the kids to bed later that evening. No, baby, Mama murmured, and I kissed his forehead. Mom isn't depressed, and I really did mean it for the first time in months. After my divorce from Tom, I had several unanticipated gifts. The fact that I could handle everything by myself wasn't the biggest surprise. I'd always been capable of it. It was seeing how much simpler life was without Tom's deceit, weighing me down all the time. Without Tom's subtly disparaging remarks and passive-aggressive remarks on my hours, my career took off. My enthusiasm for my work has returned. Tom had always said that I would never be promoted to chief of emergency medicine. While taking care of twins, the twins fared better than I had anticipated. I was first concerned about how they would handle the changes. However, kids are incredibly resilient. As Tom's legal issues worsened, they reduced the frequency of their supervised visits. After completing his time, he traveled to Dallas and ultimately accepted a plea agreement for the embezzlement allegations. Fate. Through common friends, I learned that they had moved on to another affluent target. I occasionally questioned whether she had recognized how nearly she had been caught in Tom's web of deception. I doubt she viewed it that way, but she sort of dodged a bullet. The home that Tom had so desperately attempted to take away from me turned into a real sanctuary. I made the house I had always dreamed of, remodeled the twins' rooms, and planted a garden. Each mortgage payment was a triumph, a reminder of how I had safeguarded my property. Nina made fun of me for dating again, but I was happy to concentrate on my work and kids. Later, romanticism would have its place. For the time being, I was content with the serenity that came from knowing that I had not only made it through Tom's treachery, but had also come out stronger. I thought about how different life had become one peaceful evening when I was sitting on my porch and watched Emma and Ethan play in our front yard. In the same yard where Tom had stood that night, intoxicated and furious about how I had destroyed his life. The twins were running about, their laughter reverberating throughout the neighborhood. Tom and Destiny had just reconciled briefly in Dallas, but they broke up again once she found out he was still on probation and working as a junior copywriter at a small firm, according to rumors I heard from the hospital. From marketing professional to convicted felon, from Family Guy to cautionary tale, his decline from grace had been remarkable. I was aware of the irony that his frantic attempt to seize my house had cost him his freedom, his profession, and above all, his connection with his kids. Now, the twins hardly recalled their everyday existence with him. He had become into the father they saw on the weekends, constantly making an effort with pricey presents and phony excitement. Look, Mum, Ethan applauded as Emma excitedly yelled out and gave me a cartwheel. These were the important moments. Not the house, not the triumph against Tom's plots, but the pure delight of seeing my kids develop and flourish. Tom had sent me a letter a few days prior, expressing his sincere remorse and apologies. I didn't answer and filed it aside. After being burned, certain bridges shouldn't be rebuilt. Rather, the first concentrated on creating new ones, enhancing my relationships with my kids, my work, and above all, my dignity. Story 3. My family expected me to provide free housing for my sister's family, even though I had already purchased a home. I'm going to London, and I refuse to cut them off. I'm a 35-year-old investment analyst who has a good career. I learned early on that I had to strive for what I desired because I had an elder sister, Victoria 38F. Our parents treated us quite differently from the beginning. Victoria got a lovely new Volkswagen Beetle with a big red bow on top for her 16th birthday. Dad's old Honda, which had 150,000 miles on it and a propensity to break down, was given to me when it was my turn. For our parents, Victoria has always been the perfect child. She was the social butterfly, the gorgeous one, and the one who was incapable of doing anything wrong. Soon after graduating, she married 39 million Nathan, and the couple soon had children. At 2 in the morning, they had 3 children: Charlotte, 8, Lucas, 5, Emmy, and Andrew. Their apartment is rented, and Victoria is often complaining about it. In the meanwhile, I have experienced greater luck. At the past 5 years, I've been renting a lovely one-bedroom apartment from my best friend's parents, who own a lot of properties at half the market price. I've never given them a reason not to trust me, so they do. Even though Victoria had it all, I discovered how to handle money wisely. I've been living within my means and saving hard ever since I started working, utilizing public transit whenever feasible and cooking at home instead of dining out. My coworkers often made fun of me for being too thrifty, but I had a strategy. College offered yet another glaring example of injustice. Our parents paid for Victoria's tuition, room, and board, and a generous monthly stipend while she attended her dream school. I applied for every scholarship I could find during my senior year of high school, staying up late to keep my perfect GPA since I knew it was my only chance to pursue further education. I just need to visit the office for important meetings now that remote work is more common at my organization. A peaceful home in the country looked perfect. I finally opened my savings account and looked over the information last week. After years of careful saving and preparation, I had enough to put down money on a modest house. My mother phoned at the perfect time, as she often does, when I was browsing through real estate listings. She continued, "Remember, we're having you over for dinner on Saturday." Her tone was a subliminal command disguised as a reminder. Please make an effort to be on time for once. Victoria and Nathan are bringing the kids. It was exactly 5:05 p.m. when I got to my parents' suburban house. That Saturday, I had to park on the street since Victoria's minivan had already filled their driveway. My mother fussed over everyone as though it were a state supper instead of our normal family gathering, and there was the usual commotion of kids running about inside. By now, my father had settled down with his newspaper in his normal chair, where he would stay until dinner was ready. The customary dinner complaint made the rounds. Nathan gripes about his strict boss and challenging project due dates. Victoria complains about the children's incessant requests and their little apartment. Dad was worried about the state of the economy and the cost of gas. Mom often contributes to the chaos by making remarks about everyone's eating patterns and portion sizes. I developed the skill of mental escape during these hours. I checked my phone under the table and browsed through a beautiful little house I had found, taking advantage of the commotion. A gorgeous yard, a spacious kitchen, and 2 bedrooms. The cost was within my means. A lovely wraparound porch that would be perfect for a set of rocking rockers was seen in the listing photos. I was excited about the idea of sitting there with my coffee in the morning. Why is that phone so fascinating? You didn't even touch your dinner. Through the background noise, Mom's sharp voice could be heard. She never missed a beat with her hawk-like gaze. I could have made up something about work in spite of the chaos. But maybe I was forced to be honest, since the fantasy was still warm and present in my mind. In fact, I'm examining homes. I'm considering purchasing one shortly. It was awfully quiet after that. The sound of ice cubes sinking into the water glasses was audible. The kids were aware that something had changed. In the middle of discussing her academic accomplishments, Charlotte halted. Falk started to speak, but Lucas stopped him. Little Andrew halted as well, smashing his spoon onto his high chair. Victoria's head jerked up so fast that I was afraid she might get whiplash. Nathan stopped talking in the middle of his tirade about his employer. While reaching for the salt shaker, Mom's hand hesitated. Dad's newspaper fell softly like a curtain, revealing his shocked face. Purchase a home? As though she hadn't heard me write you, Mom inquired. Yes, I instantly acknowledged, regretting my openness. I felt like I had declared plans to attack Mars based on the way they all looked at me. I'm simply looking at choices right now, nothing definite. What sort of home? Victoria remarked, her voice keeping the curiously pointed tone she adopted when she felt terrified. She used the same tone to persuade our parents that I had cheated when I scored higher on the SAT than she had just before. I responded vaguely, trying to steer the topic in another direction, but I could tell their brains were active. I haven't really made up my mind yet. Unspoken ideas are almost tangible in the atmosphere. My parents exchanged thoughtful glances that they had perfected during many years of marriage. Nathan had suddenly taken a keen interest in his mashed potatoes, while Victoria continued to stare at him. Before long, the usual supper commotion had returned, but something had changed. It sounded forced, as though the actors were frantically attempting to continue the show after forgetting their lines. Even the kids seemed to sense the tension, and their often boisterous behavior calmed down. A week later, during a crucial Zoom session, my phone started vibrating with calls from my mother. I anticipated an emergency and phoned back during my lunch break after her third attempt. At last, Mom remarked, her voice almost quivering with happiness. I've located the ideal home for you. Martha from church notified her about a listing in her area. It's totally wonderful. I laid down my half-finished meal instantly, felt a headache brewing. I haven't even asked for assistance in locating a home, Mom, but she couldn't stop now that she was in full stride. There are 5 bedrooms in it. No, 6. The main bedroom is very large. Additionally, there are these cute kid-friendly rooms with built-in wardrobes. I blinked. And the backyard, too. A playground has already been established. Is it not unbelievable? Additionally, the location is ideal for walking to the public library and St. Mary's Elementary School. I rubbed my temples, trying not to get too worked up. Thank you for thinking of me, Mom, but that's not what I'm after at all. I'd like a modest country home. Something comfortable for me alone. I don't require a playground or several kid-friendly rooms, she said. Don't be ridiculous, her joy soon giving way to annoyance. You can't only focus on yourself. You must make a plan. This home is ideal. According to Martha, the owners are driven to sell as soon as possible. Victoria picked up the phone and started advertising as many huge family homes as she could. With every new message came a new home with 4 or 6 bedrooms, lots of bathrooms, big yards, and easy access to parks and schools. The 20th message was the last one I checked. I could see they weren't paying attention to what I truly desired. Instead, I contacted Amanda Cha, a realtor with glowing recommendations. When we initially met, I was impressed by her ability to listen. I want something cozy and small, I said. A rural home with reliable internet for working remotely that isn't too distant from the city. Perhaps a little garden where I could cultivate vegetables and herbs. Her eyes sparkled when I explained my price range. I think I might have just what you're looking for. It was only released yesterday. She showed me the perfect house. 40 minutes from the downtown is this charming 2-bedroom house. There is a wraparound porch with space for rocking rockers, white exterior, and dark green shutters. Sunlight streamed into an open-plan living area through large windows. Despite its small size, the kitchen had been renovated with contemporary equipment and butcher block countertops. The living room wall was dominated by a wood-burning fireplace, and I could see a pleasant winter day spent reading next to it. I immediately fell in love with the bathroom with the clawfoot tub and the 2 little bedrooms upstairs. But the sunroom clinched the deal. A tiny greenhouse and a well-kept garden with raised beds are visible from windows on 3 sides. I instantly saw myself spending weekends there, surrounded by natural light and vegetation. The owner offered a rapid closing discount, and I accepted without hesitation. The weeks that followed were a haze of preparation and paperwork. I made a bigger down payment than was necessary, utilizing the funds I had meticulously saved over the years to keep the monthly payments affordable. However, my family definitely thought I was being frugal. In fact, I was constructing my future. I intend to make the announcement during the upcoming family dinner after everything has been settled. Mom had just begun talking about buying another house. Next door, Barbara is selling. She'll give it to us. A decent price, that is. In fact, I broke off, unable to contain my happiness. Even if they have tried to influence my choice in the past, I have already purchased a home. There was complete silence. Even Charlotte, who is usually irrepressible, stopped in the middle of her sentence. I inhaled deeply before starting to detail my new home, my voice full of joy despite the rising tension around the table. About 40 minutes outside of the city is this lovely house. A pair of bedrooms. The sunroom is the most incredible. Additionally, the backyard has a tiny greenhouse. These lovely raised garden beds belong to the previous owner. The water glasses bounced as my father's fist struck the table with such force. "Have you gone insane?" he exclaimed. He was more irate than I had ever seen him. Andrew broke into tears when he heard the deafening boom. "How could you buy a property without contacting us first?" My mom's cheeks were a startling shade of red. We identified all those ideal family houses. "Why should I seek your advice before using my own funds to purchase a home?" I inquired, feeling as if I had strayed into some bizarre parallel realm because we had it all planned out. Mom almost let out a cry. This area would have been the ideal location for Barbara's home. "There is enough space for everyone. There is space for everyone," I asked softly as my confusion increased. "I will be the only one residing there." There was a deafening silence. Victoria sat there looking strangely calm, and her parents looked at each other. His plate suddenly piqued Nathan's interest. "Actually," Mom stated in a tone that made my blood run cold, "the plan was for Victoria, Nathan, and the kids to live there with you." I bided my time until the punchline. It never came. Victoria nodded as if everything was entirely normal. "We're terribly confined in that flat. Your house would offer us all the room we need, and since we wouldn't have to pay rent or utilities, we could finally start saving money." I peered about at their dead serious features. Dad, harsh censure. Mom's justifiable fury. Victoria is entitled anticipation. Nathan's uncomfortable sidestepping. Memories from years ago came flooding back. Victoria always got what she wanted. Every time my accomplishments are overlooked, I put forth twice as much effort for half the money. Even her smallest accomplishments were commended. You all basically expected I would buy a house for Victoria's family to reside in. Naturally, Mom held out her hands as though I were purposefully being evasive. "That's the role of family. This isn't assisting. This is assuming that I'll take in 5 individuals without asking." "You're being self-centered," Victoria yelled, losing her composure. "The children must share a room. Andrew's crib is in our bedroom. They aren't treated fairly. You must immediately cancel this absurd transaction," Mom demanded, her voice rough with the power she'd held over me for 35 years. "Barbara's house is beautiful, right in the neighborhood." "No," I got up, scraping my chair against the floor. The weight of decades of repressed anger made the word sound harsher than I had anticipated. Chaos erupted. Mom threw her arms up in the air. Dad's voice shouted. The kids burst into tears. "As if I hadn't spoken," Victoria groaned. "But we'll be so cramped. Ballet is something Charlotte does. Lucas has soccer. Since you are not residing in my home, you will not be confined in any way." Calmly, I said, "None of you are ever. You think that's obvious enough?" As though I had a second head, they gazed at me. It was almost funny to see the arrogant shock on their faces. "How could you treat your own sister so cruelly?" Mom questioned, gripping her pearls and her voice quivering with rage. I took my bags and moved towards the door. Behind me, their cries rose in a clamor of accusations and demands. I was unable to hear any more words. In a daze, I got into my car and went home. They're entitled. Expectations still resonating in my ears. One update. I was packing the kitchen when the violent hammering on my apartment door started. The newspaper-wrapped coffee mug I was holding slipped out of my hand and fell safely on a stack of packing paper. "Now open this door." The sound of my father's words echoed in the forest. "We are aware that you are inside." I went cold. I still have the bubble wrap in my fingertips. There was more hammering. "Leave," I responded with a shout. I'm done talking about this. You have no right to speak to us in such a manner. The door rattled in its frame as Dad clenched his fist. This is not how we brought you up. As I picked up the phone, my hands shook. I'm going to call the cops if you don't leave now. I mean it. To make sure they could hear the beeping, I deliberately pushed digits on the keyboard after pulling it up. Right now, I'm phoning. Dad's spell was broken by Mom's rapid intake of air. We're heading out. Mom's voice was cold as ice now, but it's not over yet. You're making a grave error. I pressed myself up against the wall. Hearing their footsteps vanish down the hallway made my heart race. The first message, which featured a picture of Charlotte and Lucas crammed together on their sharing bunk bed, was sent by Victoria an hour later. Look at their cramped quarters, it said in the caption. Charlotte isn't even allowed to have a desk for her assignments. Another picture showed up when I didn't respond. Victoria and Nathan's room had a corner where Andrew's cot was crammed. Every time we go to bed, he wakes up. This isn't fair to him. As I continued to ignore her, Victoria's communications got increasingly aggressive. They started showing up at all hours, 2 and 4 a.m. and 6 in the morning. Dad's least favorite person was always you. You're the reason. Mom sobs herself to sleep. While your nieces and nephews suffer, I hope you're content living alone in that large mansion. I first banned her phone number, then her Instagram and Facebook accounts. However, she persisted in coming up with new ways to get in touch with me, including creating fictitious email addresses and new accounts on Nathan's phone. The calls started to originate from various locations. Aunt Marie was the first. I just learned about your sister's situation, sweetie. You can undoubtedly find it in your heart to support your family. Uncle Bob came next. Kid, you need to think about what actually matters here. Family comes first. My mother's best friend is Susan. Your mom is inconsolable. How could you harm your own family in this way? My mother continued to see my old high school teacher, Miss S. Peterson, at church. You were always such a nice student, in my opinion. I'm really sad to learn about your sister's predicament. The message they all sent was the same. I was cruel, heartless, and self-centered. To help Victoria, I should sacrifice my independence, my home, and my aspirations. They all don't seem to understand why I was worried about Victoria's living situation. I'd had enough of being pestered nonstop for 2 weeks. I went to my cell carrier and changed my phone number, giving it solely to my employer and a few trustworthy pals who had not chosen sides in this fiasco. The day of the move was peacefully quiet. I chose a moving firm I'd never used before, ensuring that my relatives couldn't track my address using common local services. By dusk, I was standing in my new living room, surrounded by boxes and opportunities, thanks to the mover's efficient and expert work. My cottage's first night. Sitting with a cup of tea on my veranda, I watched the stars come out and listened to the crickets. There are no sirens or traffic noises. No family strife exists, just tranquility. I felt something inside me suddenly relaxed, a tightness I hadn't realized I'd been lugging around for years. I occasionally checked their social media updates. Victoria posts passive-aggressive status messages about family, betrayal, and selfish siblings. Mom's barely veiled posts about ungrateful children and family obligations. Relatives and family friends made comments, everyone taking sides without understanding the whole tale. Here's the problem, though. None of it concerns me anymore. Their comments can't reach me and my new refuge. I turned the second bedroom into a home office, positioning my monitors to face the window so I can watch birds visit the feeder I erected. The previous owners' raised garden beds are currently overflowing with herbs and vegetables. My first try at gardening was surprisingly successful for the first time in my life. I am living fully on my own terms and it feels really liberated. Update 2, something unexpected occurred today. Remember the large investment project I've been working on remotely from my new home? It paid out hugely. My manager summoned me to a virtual meeting to inform me that I had not only received a significant bonus, but was also being considered for a director job. My new environment's quiet and focus had enabled me to excel at work in ways I had never believed possible, without regular family interruptions and emotional exhaustion. I found myself proposing new ideas and taking on leadership roles. Naturally. This triumph, however, resulted in an interesting development. Victoria's apartment complex was sold to a developer who intends to transform it into luxury condominiums. All tenants received eviction notifications with a 60-day notice to vacate. I learned from family members that Victoria and Nathan were having difficulty finding a new place that fit their budget. The timing could not have been better. My promotion comes with a large salary boost, and I chose to utilize my bonus to make down payment on a lovely holiday home in the mountains. It's essentially an investment as property values in that neighborhood have skyrocketed. Today I received a well-phrased email from Nathan, not Victoria. Interestingly enough, he described their predicament and asked if I would like to negotiate housing arrangements again. The old me may have felt guilty despite everything. I could have considered helping, but I simply gave them some local apartment listings that fit their budget and wished them luck in their quest. Mom took a different approach. She showed up in my workplace building. I suppose she got the address from LinkedIn with tears in her eyes. She described how she and her father were suffering with their retirement money and had always relied on the family sticking together to help each other in their golden years. I listened politely. Then I stated that my financial advisor had advised against combining family and financial commitments. Her face turned a familiar shade of red, but this time, in the professional setting of my company lobby, she couldn't cause a fuss. The family's social media campaign has taken a unique turn. They are now writing about wealthy people who have lost touch with their roots, as well as stories on toxic individualism and modern society. My aunt even wrote a lengthy Facebook post about how money can transform people, to which hundreds of people responded sympathetically. But they are unaware that my accomplishment has drawn the attention of headhunters. Several famous firms, including one in Europe, have expressed interest in hiring me. The idea of putting an ocean between myself and this drama is getting more enticing. Meanwhile, my new greenhouse is flourishing. I've started growing exotic orchids, which are delicate and require time and attention to detail. Similar to creating a job or limits, I'm discovering that the most satisfying experiences in life require time and effort to cultivate. I joined a local gardening group, which has become a fantastic source of camaraderie. These people have no idea about my family issues. They just know me as the woman who brings home grown herbs to meetings and asks in-depth questions about soil pH. It's refreshing to be judged entirely on who I am, rather than my willingness to give up my life for the sake of others' convenience. Yesterday, I held my first dinner party in my new house. Colleagues, gardening friends, and neighbors gathered at my dining table to share wonderful food and conversation. No one asked anything from me except possibly the recipe for my herb-crusted salmon. The evening was filled with laughter, intelligent conversation, and mutual respect. All of the things that family gatherings should be but never are. As I watched my visitors have fun on the porch and fireflies dance in the yard beyond, I realized something important. I haven't simply purchased a house. I've built a life. A life that is totally my own, free of the burden of others. Expectations and entitlements allow them to submit their passive-aggressive messages. Let them discuss family duty and obligation. I'm too busy thriving to worry. Update 3: The last elements of my win fell into place today. Victoria and Nathan were unable to acquire a new apartment. Their credit check found some alarming findings. They're currently temporarily residing with our parents, with all 3 kids squeezed into the guest room. Meanwhile, I received an official offer for the director post in our London office. The remuneration package is outstanding, including a lovely company-provided flat in Kensington. When I announced my acceptance on LinkedIn, professional congrats flooded in. The contrast between my colleagues' sincere support and my family's harsh silence was startling. The most rewarding moment was when Dad called. His voice lacked the usual authority. He began by casually asking about this London foolishness, but it soon became evident why he was calling. The recent market slump has significantly reduced their retirement savings. They'd reportedly planned to sell their home and move in with Victoria's family. In the house, they anticipated me to buy. We always assumed we'd all be together, he added, his voice unusually shaky. Your mother and I aren't getting any younger. I stayed professional and detached, offering a great financial advisor I know. She specializes in retirement planning for seniors. I'll email you her contact information. My family is unaware that I have already made arrangements to manage my mountain home as a premium vacation rental. The predicted income is impressive, more than enough to pay Victoria's whole monthly rent, strangely. But it is not information I intend to convey. Today I held a farewell garden party for my local friends. The greenhouse was in full flower, with orchids providing a beautiful backdrop. As I watched my visitors have fun, someone commented on how much I've changed since moving here, how I appear more confident and at ease. Later that evening, while packing for London, I discovered an old photo album. There was a photo of teenage Victoria receiving her brand new Volkswagen, and I was standing in the background next to Dad's ancient Honda. The recollection no longer stings. Instead, it makes me realize how far I've come. I am retaining my rustic cottage. It will be my getaway when I visit the United States. The garden will be maintained by a nice, retired couple from my gardening group, while the house will remain my sanctuary, free of family strife. Tomorrow I'll board a flight to London. My family does not yet know. They will find out when they see my social media posts from Hyde Park or along the Thames. Victoria will probably write about sisters who desert their families. Mum will share articles on expats who regret abandoning their loved ones. But sitting here in my sunroom one final time before my early morning journey, watching the sunset paint the sky in vibrant colors, I feel nothing but peace. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't winning the battle, but choosing to leave the battlefield entirely. Allow them to deal with their cramped living conditions and financial challenges. I'll be too busy enjoying my new life in London to read their social media updates. Sometimes the best retaliation is simply living well. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you. Story 4. I'm Amalia, and responsibility has been with me ever since I can remember. There was always a lot going on in our small house. My baby sister, who entered our life when I was 10, and my 2 younger brothers running around. Would you mind changing Sarah's diaper, Amalia, honey? Mom's voice, worn out from working double shifts, would ring out. I would quickly drop what I was doing to assist. That was the norm for us. Everyone, with the exception of Sarah, contributed in. She was different as soon as she got there. She's still a baby. Leave her alone, Dad would say to dismiss any worries about her actions. In an attempt to support us all, I watched as my parents worked themselves to the bone. Dad at the building site. Mom is cleaning the house. To keep food on the table and dreams alive in our hearts, they exerted every effort. Being the middle children, my brothers Mike and David were sometimes overlooked in the mix between Sarah's privileges and my obligations. We traded knowing looks across the dinner table when Sarah would throw another tantrum and get her way again. In an effort to escape the pattern of barely making ends meet, I began working as soon as I graduated from high school. Although the neighborhood diner was unglamorous, it was a beginning. Every dime I made went into my college savings jar stashed somewhere in my closet. Late at night, I would count it, hoping to have enough to enroll in community college courses. My managers were aware of my commitment within a year. After I transitioned from waitressing to bookkeeping, my aspirations of attending college became less unrealistic. I enrolled in evening programs, managing employment and studies with a dedication that amazed even me. The fatigue was genuine. I would occasionally nod off while reading my textbooks, only to wake up early for another shift. However, seeing Sarah sleep until noon, skip class whenever she wanted, and get away with it all simply made me more determined to achieve. One night, as I was studying in the kitchen at midnight, Dad cautioned me that I was going to burn myself out. I grinned as I glanced up from my accounting assignment. I'm heading somewhere, maybe. I swear to you, Dad, my college degree gave me access to opportunities I never would have imagined. First National Bank recruited me as a junior analyst, and I put myself into the work with the same tenacity that got me through school. My boss drew me aside after a few months. I've never witnessed someone pick things up so fast, Amalia said. You'll get far here if you keep at this pace. She was not mistaken. While others grumbled about office politics, I was good with statistics and much better with people. I got through them with ease. Perhaps I had learned something valuable from all those years of handling family relationships. Ultimately, My brothers David and Mike, meanwhile, had left home and begun their own lives. Sarah, on the other hand, continued to live her life without consequence at home. She had always done so. When Mom called, she would give me updates that I didn't want to hear. Sarah left around 3 in the morning. She would sigh once more and add, "I worry, but you know how she is." Yes, I was aware. I was also aware of the general lack of focus, the parade of boyfriends, and the poor grades. However, it was no longer my issue. Now I had my own place, my own life, and my own objectives. Then came the call that made all the difference. One morning, Sarah's expecting mother made an announcement. The dad has left for Arizona, that he has no interest in it. I tightened my hold on my phone and promised to assist her in raising the child. Naturally. Can we do anything else? They would, of course. Even at 18, Sarah remained their beloved baby, even carrying a child of her own. I didn't say anything since I knew what would happen next. Amalia, won't you also assist? Visit us on the weekends. You're really skilled with kids. At that point, I began to come up with a remarkable number of reasons: client meetings, professional development classes, and urgent job assignments. Anything to avoid caring for yet another child during my little leisure time. During one very stressful phone discussion, Mom exclaimed, "I don't understand you anymore." You were really helpful once. I used to be a kid who was forced to help. I corrected her. Now that I'm an adult, I have my own life. However, family. Family is reciprocal. I send you money every month. Where have you gone, Mom? That typically silences them, at least for a while. Sarah's prenatal care was covered by the sizable checks I paid. Baby supplies come next, followed by continuing costs. However, it was never sufficient to gain their acceptance. Lisa informed me over coffee one day that they were disparaging you behind your back, Maya, saying you've changed, you know. Get chilly. I patiently brew my coffee while seeing the patterns the cream makes in the dark beverage. Let them speak. In any case, they have never comprehended me. They claim that you lack gratitude, she continued. I gave her a direct glance. Thank you. For what purpose? The honor of caring for their other kids. The chance to raise their grandchild today. At Lisa, I've worked hard for all I own. Everything. That week, he was promoted to senior analyst. Both my pay and the checks I sent home rose once again. However, I maintained my boundaries. No last-minute childcare or babysitting on the weekends. No favors at the last minute. Give me the name Kelly's. Between client meetings and financial reports, I'd been the responsible one long enough. Not that romance was a top concern. Up until James's message appeared on my phone that rainy Tuesday night, I had hardly used my dating app. There was something off about his profile. Perhaps it was the sincere grin or the absence of selfies taken at the gym without shirts. His message said, "I noticed she works in finance. In reality, I work as an investment advisor. Perhaps over coffee, we could bore each other with market jargon. I never imagined I'd have time for the type of connection that developed from that coffee to supper, weekends, and 2 years later. Even after my most trying days, James was able to make me laugh and was understanding of my work schedule. I never thought I'd find someone who understands both compound interest and my terrible jokes," he commented one evening as we strolled around the park. Next came the suggestion, nothing ostentatious. After a homemade dinner, it's just the two of us at my apartment. My life would be impossible without you. He held out the ring as he said, "Get married to me." Before he could complete his question, I said, "Yes." The process of introducing him to my family went remarkably well. A little wonder was that Sarah even behaved herself. My folks were ecstatic. Their workaholic daughter was finally starting a family. Mom exclaimed after our first family meal together, "He's amazing, Amalia. Did you notice how wonderful he is with Tommy?" She was referring to my nephew, Sarah's kid, who had in fact developed a quick fancy to James. The wedding was stunning, and the beginning of married life was ideal. James seemed to have always been a part of the family. When we were there, he would spend hours teaching Tommy how to build with blocks or toss a ball. Sarah observed these exchanges with a certain ferocity that was not immediately apparent. She would smile meaningfully at me and remark, "He's going to be such an amazing father." Amalia, you're really fortunate. That was the beginning of the question. From James himself, then from my family. Isn't it time for him to ask? Tommy was running about our living room. Our age isn't decreasing. I would repeatedly explain my stance. I want us to be absolutely ready. First, we built our own home, not in this unit. We achieved security and savings. But we're doing fine. He'd counter. They both do wonderful jobs. What are we waiting for? For the proper moment, I'd urge one child when we're ready. We decided on that idea. During family get togethers, I could sense his disappointment even though he would say and then stop talking. I would see him staring at Tommy with longing. Your sister is doing nicely, he would say, occasionally not quite removing the sharpness from his voice. My sister depends on our parents' retirement funds and resides with them. That's not what I want for our child, I would respond. Like watching storm clouds develop on a bright day. The tension increased gradually and almost imperceptibly. Though you convince yourself it's still a long way off, you know the rain is coming. I was too preoccupied with being promoted. We had a house savings fund, and I had meticulously planned out our 5 years of marriage and spring cleaning. Still required navigating James's mess. He was never good at organizing his half of the closet. I began that Saturday morning like any other, going through old receipts, exercise clothing I had forgotten, and the normal mess that piled up on his shelves. I discovered it at that point. I had never seen a phone like this before. I took it up, feeling sick to my stomach, tucked under his winter jackets. Not his office phone, not his own phone, not even the latch was on it. I opened the mails with trembling hands. Sarah, my younger sister, gave me the first one I saw. You already can't wait for her to return to work on Saturday, miss. I wish I could hide the hundreds of messages and images. Talk about me. LOL, she has no idea. Always in the office. Her valuable career is all that matters to her. Months passed before the timestamps appeared. I sat on the floor of the closet after my legs failed me, reading one message after another, each one getting worse. Then I noticed it. The telegram that brought my world to a halt. The baby is unquestionably yours. Today, 12 weeks along, the doctor verified. I don't recall taking the car to my parents' place. Other than the phone in my white-knuckled hand, I don't recall anything. There was Sarah, naturally. Cartoons on Saturday mornings with Tommy. One large, contented family. What on earth is this? On the coffee table, I tossed the phone. Startled, Tommy looked up, and his mother hurried him to his room to play. Sarah didn't even bat an eyelid. As if to check the weather, she took up the phone and casually browsed through it. Well, I suppose that's all you have to say now? Are you having an affair with my husband? She gave a shrug. In fact, I shrugged. We have fallen in love. Amalia, these things do occur. And now that the kid is on the way, James and I want to tie the knot. As soon as Amalia stops being tough about it, hard, what I was hearing was unbelievable. I'm being challenging. Yes, Sarah said, as if she were describing something easy to a young kid. In any case, you never desired children. Your valuable career is keeping you too busy. A true family is what James needs. I looked to my parents, hoping they would say something to support me, to denounce this treachery. Mom, on the other hand, knelt down beside Sarah and patted her hand. Amalia made an effort to be sensible. James is excellent with Tommy, who needs a father figure. Additionally, a new baby is on the way. Reasonable. My voice broke. There is an affair between my sister and my spouse. Do you also expect me to be sensible? Dad cleared his throat. You didn't want kids then, James and Honey. Being a father has always been his dream. Perhaps this is a good thing. How recently did you even prepare his dinner? A good wife would be Sarah. As my family sat there guarding the unassailable, I turned to face them, smug and expecting my husband's child, Sarah. The next wedding is already being planned by Mom. Dad is obviously on their side, but he's avoiding my gaze. A good wife. Like your beloved Sarah, who cheats on you and with her sister's husband, I repeated numbly. Sarah gave an eye roll. Amalia, don't be so dramatic. Simply return to your large office and your crucial meetings. Family matters should be left to those who genuinely care about them. The drive home from my parents' house is hardly a memory for me. The world didn't seem real. As if I were witnessing the disintegration of someone else's life rather than my own. James was in the living room, pretending it was just another Saturday, when I walked through our front door. Hello, sweetheart. He came over to give me a hug. His smile, that familiar one, the smile I once adored, I felt sick to my stomach from that smile. Holding up his second phone, I took a step back. Do you want to explain? His face changed in an instant. Confusion at first, followed by recognition and fear. Where did you discover it? While doing the cleaning. You should really look for better places to hide your affair. Amalia phones. I can clarify. Describe what? The messages, the pictures, or perhaps describe how you conceived my sister. First, he attempted denial, like they all do. It's not. I mean, I didn't, but he must have seen something in my face, because suddenly his whole demeanor changed. The mask dropped completely. All right. Indeed, Sarah and I are together. He lost his temper. What did you expect? You're never home. All you care about is work, work, work. When was the last time we ever had a serious talk about establishing a family? Oh, so this is my fault? You deceived because I desired financial security before having children. You never wanted children? Not really. You always had some excuse. The house, the savings, the appropriate moment. Sarah truly wants a family. She is aware of what matters in life. I was disgusted when I saw this man, this stranger, wearing my husband's face. Loyalty is what matters in life. Basic human decency and honor. But I suppose you and my dear sister don't care about those things. Acting arrogant is not necessary, he grinned. The only reason you're upset is that Sarah is giving me something you wouldn't. The following day, the divorce papers were submitted. It went through fast since I had records of the encounter. To assist me in leaving the flat, my brothers David and Mike came. The only people who supported me were them. As we packed boxes, Mike said, we always knew Sarah was spoiled. This is a new low, though. David was unable to even pronounce her name. I think they're dead, he said. To my brothers, both of them. I couldn't help but hear the updates I didn't want to hear. In a modest ceremony, James and Sarah were married. Naturally, my parents were there, beaming with pride. The baby was born. A female. They relocated to a modest suburban home. Tommy began referring to James as Dad. At one of our monthly dinners, Mike informed me that Mom is always trying to convince us to come see them. Claims that we must reunite as a family. David raised his glass and stated, we are a family, all three of us. That's sufficient. I nodded, appreciating my brother's devotion. In a society where loyalty didn't appear to matter anymore, there are betrayals that cannot be forgiven, bridges that cannot be repaired, and families that are better off broken for years. We were the only ones who realized that these things exist. My new apartment has marble countertops, floor-to-ceiling windows that overlook the city skyline, and enough room to finally put the art collection on display I had always desired. The garage lights shone on the Mercedes parked in my designated space. I had made it just the way I had intended. James and Sarah were having financial difficulties, and my brothers frequently dropped by with gossip and news. In 2 years, they had moved 3 times, each time to a smaller apartment. I didn't care, though. I had stopped caring about their lives until that Tuesday night, when I saw a number on my phone that I had assumed I would never see again. Even though Amalia James is 4 years older than me, I can still recognize her voice, and it makes my stomach turn. Don't hang up, please. I ought to have. I choose to listen instead. As if he had any right to ask me for anything, he replied. We need your help. Sarah was involved in an accident. Severely fractured her leg. Fracture of a compound. Despite having surgery, she is unable to move, unable to look after the children. She is also pregnant once again. I pondered whether this was a cosmic joke as I sat there with my phone to my ear. Someone needs to come get the kids from school. Until I get home from work, keep an eye on them. With the impending arrival of a new baby, Tommy is becoming too large to manage things by himself. He hesitated. We hoped you would be able to assist. What did you think? I sounded weirdly composed. Amalia, they're your nephews. Your household? Right now? Sarah is unable to even go to the restroom by herself. My relatives. I said it again. The sister who had an affair with my spouse, as well as the husband who betrayed me. My family is that. Don't act that way. His voice changed from begging to accusing as he snapped. It's not about us here. It concerns defenseless kids in need of assistance. What makes you so self-centered to give a damn about them? Too self-centered? It nearly made me chuckle. It's impressive that you said it. Here, we're having trouble. He raised his voice. Are you aware of the high cost of children? Just to put food on the table, I'm putting in extra hours. Even a quality apartment is now out of our price range. You're enjoying the good life in your opulent condo and expensive automobile in the meantime. That's what this is all about then. Cash, he responded sourly. Not all of us can concentrate only on our careers. There are those of us who have actual obligations. With all much money and no one else to spend it on except yourself, it must be great. I said icily. It must be nice to have the family you stole and no way to support them. It seems like a true dream realized. The children require parents who did not establish their connection based on treachery. James, goodbye. Before he could return my call, I hung up and blocked his phone. The appearance of my mother's number on my phone was nearly as unwanted as James's had been. Still, I responded. I couldn't quite shake some old habit. Amalia. When Mom wanted anything, she always used that tone in her voice. Sarah has to be discussed. She requires assistance. Did James not call you? About her leg? I walked my living room, resisting the need to end the call right away. I'll tell you what I told him, and he did indeed. It's not my issue. How come you're so icy? She's your sister. She has 3 kids and is having difficulties. Well, I'll be 3 shortly. The sister who had an affair with my spouse. That sister. Mom let out a deep sigh. Years have passed since then. You have to get over it, Amalia. We are related. It's funny that family only counts when you need me. We have done our best to assist her. Mom continues to beg for money, but her voice cracks a bit. For everything, even the rent and the children, all of our funds have been spent. We can't continue like this. Your father and I couldn't contain my laughter. At last, the golden kid is proving too costly to care for. Don't be mean. She is just. She has never mastered it. Mom walked away. To what end? Work? Provide for herself. Accept accountability for her behavior. I wonder why. She simply never stops producing children. Mom exclaimed, at last letting out her displeasure. She refuses to hunt for work. She claims to be too busy with the kids, yet she is constantly in need of money. She seems to be just the kind of person you brought up, I said icily. The princess who was never held accountable. That's not the correct way for you to talk to me. Mom's voice lifted. Your mommy is me. And who is to blame for Sarah's development? He taught her that nothing was ever hers without effort. That she would always be saved by someone. We gave it our all. No, you gave it your best shot. You're phoning me now because feeding the monster you made is too costly. It is your responsibility to support your family. Now Mom was practically yelling. You've done everything for me and we've done everything for you, I interrupted. Do you mean helping my sister when she cheated on my husband? Or as if I were selfish for desiring financial stability before starting a family? I have nothing to repay you. Before she could answer, I hung up. 4 years of repressed anger have left my hands trembling. Suddenly, the best retaliation seemed to be the pricey view outside my apartment window. Without their assistance or consent, my life unfolded precisely as I had imagined it would. I was looking over quarterly reports one evening when Mike called. Sarah, you have no idea who attempted to contact me today. The desperation tour was already on the road, as I knew. Bingo asked me to assist with the children and perhaps provide them a loan till they were able to support themselves. As like they had ever been upright in the first place, he snorted. You told her what? David reminded her yesterday that certain betrayals are irreversible, that her treatment of you went beyond simple infidelity. A family was being destroyed. She broke down in tears and accused us of being unkind, that family ought to support other families. He hesitated. She didn't seem overly worried about her family, I reminded her, when she and her spouse were having sex. Gazing at the city lights, I reclined on my office chair. What was her reaction to that, about what you would anticipate? Began yelling that we were all against her. How no one is aware of how difficult her life is. He chuckled grimly. I suppose, at last, karma caught up with her. David delivered the much-anticipated news 2 weeks later. They went to live with their parents. Each and every one, Sarah, James, the kids, and the baby, on the way. Dad is making another bedroom out of his workshop. What are Dad and Mom doing about it? Do you recall how tranquil retirement was meant to be? These days, they work as ATMs and babysitters full time. While Sarah heals, mom is taking care of the children, which reportedly means she spends the whole day browsing on her phone. To pay for their bills, dad is taking money out of his pension. I gave a head shake. They made their pick. David went on. Mom stopped by my place yesterday. I was wondering if I may speak with you about lending a hand, claimed to be overburdened. They probably are. Mom unexpectedly knocked on my door the next day. I nearly failed to identify her. She appeared older and more worn out than just physically. Please. Before I could say a word, she began. Now just listen. I interrupted her. You pay attention. You picked all of it. You decided to treat Sarah. Run. When she deceived me, you decided to stand by her side. You elected to let them move in. These are your options, Mama. Cohabitate with them. And I'll contact the cops if you come to my door once more. Do we understand? I interrupted her once more as she began to speak. Remember that this was your decision the next time you feel overburdened. Instead of choosing the one who always put out effort and acted morally, you went with the one who betrayed her sister. Live with it now. I closed the door on her protestations and banned her phone. Apart from my brothers, this was the final family number I needed to block. Marcus, the man I had been dating for a few months, joined me for dinner that evening. He knew my tale, knew about the betrayal and the consequences. He had never hurried or pushed. Simply pay attention and comprehend. He leaned across the table and held my hand after I updated him on the most recent family happenings. You're not always born into a family. It depends on who you select. I returned his grip while reflecting about my brother's support, Marcus's understanding of me, and the life I had created for myself. Ultimately, my family had not been taken by Sarah. She just assisted me in determining which elements were valuable. This weekend, my brothers are coming over, I informed him. Do you want to come along? His smile was sufficient response. And I was genuinely content with who I was and where I was for the first time in a long time. I no longer cared about the drama unfolding at my parents' house. I had my own happiness to preserve, my own family to raise, and my own life to enjoy. Story 5. Discovered that my wife was having an affair. I instructed her to assist my best buddy following the death of his wife. Because she was unsure of the father, she later had an abortion. I don't even know where to begin. I can't articulate how I'm feeling right now or how to digest all of this. I created this account in the first place to check if anyone else has experienced anything even somewhat comparable, and, regrettably, it's not that rare. I apologize ahead of time for the lengthy post. I simply had to let it out, because I was afraid I would lose my mind. I met my wife. In college, we'll name her Sue. At the time, we were both 18. As soon as we went on our first date, we clicked, and within weeks of dating, we were exchanging "I love you" messages. Although she sort of chased me, I was really happy that she did. We confided in one another about our innermost secrets and fears, and I supported her through the entire process when her father died during her last year of college. I had stayed overnight with her when her father was in the hospital due to pancreatic cancer, so she wouldn't be alone. We overcame it, and that moment made our relationship stronger. She admitted to me that she had no idea what she would have done if I hadn't supported her. She referred to me as her soulmate. I was certain that I would marry this girl, and 2 years after we graduated, I did just that. At that point in time, life couldn't get much better for me. After graduating, I got a good paying job, married the woman of my dreams, and were adored by both of our families. I had what I can only characterize as an unshakable, fraternal relationship with my best buddy, Dave. Or so I believed. He was the brother I never had, and we had been friends since 3rd grade. Also married, he and his spouse relocated when she secured a high-paying position at a large law firm almost a year prior. He was devastated by the death of his wife in an automobile accident. After that, he returned to our hometown, but he never changed. I made an effort to support him, but he refused to talk to anyone. No one knew the anguish he was going through. I thus requested my wife to speak with him. Given that she had also lost a loved one, Dave could be able to connect more easily with someone who had experienced a similar situation. Yes, I recognize now that this was a terrible mistake. Every day we visit him, Even when I wasn't there, she would stay at his apartment for hours on end. Without inviting me, they were watching movies and going on walks together, getting lunch. Anything that couples do. I did feel uneasy since, of course, this was a lot more engagement than I had wanted them to have. However, Dave was benefiting greatly from it. Before all of this, it's crucial to note that Dave and Sue had never been fond of one another. This is because prior to his marriage to his wife, Sue always believed he was a jerk. Dave was in and out of relationships, and even after he started dating his late wife, he continued to cheat on her. Because of this, Sue disliked him in particular and frequently asked me how I could be friends with someone so morally bankrupt. I was also blind to what was coming because of my contempt for Chris. As I previously stated, Sue and Dave grew so close that she would ask him to events I organized for us as a couple. Moreover, she started displaying symptoms of what I now know to be classic cheater behavior, always on her phone, becoming progressively aloof, arriving home late, and having little to no intimacy. Everything seemed too strange at this point, and one day I asked her who she was messaging. When I requested to see what they were talking about, she became really upset and accused me of being possessive. She said it was one of her pals. Dave told me everything was okay, and even accused me of not trusting him and my own wife when I expressed how uneasy their friendship was making me feel. I was being gaslighted. This kept on until Sue went out once more one day. She said that I was making her crazy with my allegations and that she needed some time away from me, so she was spending the weekend at her sister's. I contacted her sister to find out whether she was really expecting Sue to come over, because I was still really dubious. Sue was still not here, although she affirmed. Note that she had departed at around 3 p.m., and it takes us almost 4 hours to go to her sister's house. It was 10 o'clock now. I went to my friend's place since I had a gut feeling that I should. As it happens, my wife's vehicle is parked a few feet from my friend's residence. I hate to say it, but I sobbed a lot since it was now quite evident what was happening. I made the decision to walk in and see whether this was indeed what was occurring after a few minutes had passed. I knew the rear door would be opened, so I entered via it. As I crept inside, I could hear my wife groaning. By the time I reached his bedroom door, I was trembling. Through the creak, I could see. My spouse stooped on his bedside table. That picture will always be in my mind. As I write this, I can't stop weeping. They both froze and stared at me as I pulled the door open wide. It was everything I could do not to beat the living daylights out of Dave. I simply left and got into my vehicle. My wife began yelling at me to halt so she could give me an explanation when I heard them scurrying. I was unwilling to look at her. I simply drove away because I'm not sure what I would have done. They were both bombarding me with calls as I sobbed the whole way home. I spent the last week as so here visiting one of my college pals. I am unable to eat. I can't stop thinking about things, and I can't sleep. My employer was gracious enough to provide me time off when I told them what was happening. Sue and Dave, as well as both of our families, have been calling me. I haven't replied to anybody since I assured my family that I was okay and will be returning shortly. This is really painful. I'd like to pass away. My desire is to leave this earth. However, I'm too cowardly to do it myself. I'm making an effort to be strong, but my determination is faltering. How could someone you care about be so selfless? I'm at a loss on what to do. How do I handle this? Help me, please. One update. First of all, I wanted to express my gratitude to everyone for their encouragement and wise counsel, which helped to make this period of my life relatively tolerable. Some of you told me your own tales, which helped me understand that I can recover from this. Self-delete was a frequent notion of mine, but I believe I'm over it now. I sincerely appreciate your concern. Here's the update that many of you requested. I'm not sure how to interpret that. I wanted to publish the email because it baffled me, but there are a lot more like it. The person I married is clearly someone I don't know. What are your thoughts about it? I called a lawyer and met with her yesterday, as many of you advised, along with family and friends. I told her everything, and considering the situation, she seemed quite eager to help me get out of this financial rut as quickly as possible. Even while I still adore my wife, I'm not sure if I can move past this. Dave also sent me a ton of texts, but I don't want to read them. I frequently go from sadness to anger and am unsure of how to feel at the moment. Should I attempt to find out if we can work things out? Or should I dissolve this marriage right away to avoid further heartache? My family is well informed. Sue apparently told everyone what she had done. Over 2 weeks have passed since I last saw everyone, and I still don't know what to do. It still hurts. I can only envision Sue and Dave together whenever I close my eyes, and the anguish doesn't seem to be getting any better. I understand that the majority of you are advocating for a simple divorce, and I would agree. However, when you are the one in this circumstance, things aren't quite so clear cut. Considering all of this new information, any help would be greatly appreciated, especially from those who have been here before. Wayward and betrayed spouses. In what ways did you overcome this? Is it even feasible? I'm quite sure I'm going to move on from the divorce right now, but I just need confirmation that I'm doing the correct thing. I felt compelled to add this after reading all of your comments. She has been living with her sister for the previous few weeks, according to her, her family, and friends. She stated in one of her letters that since I found out and went complete NC with Dave, she has only spoken to him once. Her mother phoned me and texted me to apologize for her daughter's actions. I didn't answer her phone. According to her, Sue is currently receiving individual counseling. She stated in another email that she would never abandon me for Dave. She doesn't love him, but she does have feelings for him. It seems that Dave is delaying his departure until he has a face-to-face conversation with me. Some of my family members and friends are advising that I should simply talk to her and move on, even though I haven't addressed a lot of other issues and am definitely omitting some information. I'm now the second update. I thus took a break from Reddit and other social media to think about my marriage and the next steps I wanted to take. Along with family and friends, the generous folks on this site were giving me a lot of advice. But I wasn't certain of my true desires. This might be a novel because a lot has transpired since then. Please be patient. The majority of the marriage, in my opinion, was made up of just pleasant recollections. I was looking for a reason to stay because of this. But as I began to consider her infidelity and how she and Dave deceived me, I began to doubt my sanity. I felt nothing except anger. My anger increased as I dug further. I'll never forget the disgusted look Dave gave me when I asked him directly if he and my wife were having an affair, or how upset Sue would get when I asked her where she'd been when she arrived home late. The fact that my best buddy was involved made the already terrible infidelity even worse. The gaslighting, however. The gaslighting? Fucking. I'll never be able to go past it. All right. It takes a certain type of person to lie so easily and so well, yet I was played like the idiot I was. How they managed to flip the switch that way is beyond me. About 2 days before I found out, she was telling me how much she loved me and how hot she was when driving home, thinking about me. I recall that one night when she arrived home late. She was wearing no underwear, so I'm very sure she had returned home from Dave's. She had consecutive sexual encounters with both of us. I gave her a fucking kiss. I felt like a wimp in the whole thing. How could I have allowed them to so completely trample me? It's really emasculating. The more I thought about it, the more I wanted to go to Dave's, but I was unable to resist. For me, there is no justice. Not with our legal system. They are allowed to mentally abuse and torture me. However, I will be the one imprisoned for an unknown amount of time if I respond. When I discussed this with my lawyer, she advised me to avoid making any foolish decisions. I would risk my prospects in the divorce process in addition to going to jail. I don't want to visit a therapist, but she urged that I should. I see no need for it. Sue continued to bombard me with emails, which just made me more irate. The same rubbish she had been saying about how awful her life would be without me was still coming out of her mouth. If I were so important to her, she even had the audacity to email me Bible passages on forgiveness. Why do it? I wanted to be occupied, so I resumed going to work. I've found that being distracted has significantly improved my coping skills. I also drink less now than I did at first. Sue sent me a note one day while I was at work. Despite my desire to just discard it, I chose to read it. She discussed how her individual counseling helped her identify some underlying problems she was experiencing with herself. Her poor self-esteem is the most significant of all. She clarified that she was extremely self-aware due to the disparity in our appearance, and that she secretly wished she was wanted by someone other than me. She claims that her poor self-esteem stemmed from the fact that her sister has always been considerably attractive than she is. She said that she wanted such approval from someone else while knowing that I was drawn to her and that I made her feel attractive. She apologized once more, saying that she was only trying to find a solution to ensure that it didn't happen again and that it wasn't an excuse. Do you think I should give her another chance? She went on to ask whether we might try to resolve our differences through marriage therapy. At this point, I just ignored whatever she or her family sent me because I still hadn't replied. In any case, I initiated the divorce process, and the first thing I had to do was divide our money. Regretfully, I was unable to separate from her without her approval. We both have individual accounts and a joint savings account, and regrettably, even though I earn a lot more than she does and have made the majority of the contributions to that account, I am unable to withdraw the amount I am entitled to without her. It's likely that we'll have to divide it 50-50. I simply went ahead and filed for divorce. A few weeks ago, she was served, and on the day of her service, the crap show began. She arrived at my residence with the divorce paperwork. I'm not sure how she discovered my location. For what seemed like an eternity, we simply gazed at one another. And that night, sorrow returned in full force. All of my feelings came back with fresh vitality. I nearly started crying again, but I refrained. She hurried up to me and attempted to offer me an embrace, but it appeared as though she had been sobbing. She became distraught as I gently moved her away. She began to yell, wondering if we could just have a conversation and why I was giving up on us so quickly. I decided that all I wanted at this moment was to leave her. I felt a range of emotions as I looked at her, so I wanted to go before I said or did something I would later regret. She flung herself on the top of the hood of my car as I attempted to return. She told me she simply wanted to talk things out, and that we couldn't terminate our marriage in that way without at least resolving the issue when I asked her what she wanted. She was obviously creating a scene and not accepting no for an answer, so I gave in. I simply sat down and listened to her again once we arrived at my flat. She apologized, stated she doesn't love Dave, and that she would stop at nothing to keep our marriage together. According to her, she conducted some study on potential future steps and recommended a trial separation. She advised that although I could date anybody I wanted, I should put off getting a divorce and at the very least give her the opportunity to restore our friendship before we became husband and wife. She made numerous other outrageous suggestions, such as a one-sided open marriage that favored me, recommended that we just go to a new state or perhaps a foreign country, just the two of us, and tried to show me tales of other couples who had survived infidelity. We had discussed moving and establishing a family not long before all of this garbage occurred, so that aspect kind of upset me. After she finished, we simply sat there and stared at one another in quiet once again. I then questioned her about why. Why him? Why would you cheat on me with him and just return once I've caught her? When I asked her these questions, she broke down in tears. She stated she felt incredibly bad even throughout the activities, but that she didn't know how to stop, that he didn't consider the repercussions or what she would lose because she was so engrossed in the affair. She said that the therapy helped her understand that she most likely would have cheated on me, if not with Dave, then with someone else. The same underlying problems that she was ignorant of were allegedly the root of this. She told me she didn't love Dave, that they hadn't spoken since I left, and that she didn't even know where he was now when I asked her if she loved him. Said she would stop at nothing to make up for what she had done to us, and that she loved me alone. She swore on her dead father that this was the first and final time I asked her who else knew about her and Dave when I questioned whether she had ever cheated on me before all of this. Only her sister, she responded hesitantly, adding that she had learned about it a few days before I did, and that she pleaded with her to stop it and tell me the truth. You guys were absolutely correct when you said that the sister knew her. I also questioned her about why she wasn't just going to go be with Dave and why she was pleading. I questioned her about whether she truly wanted to be with me or whether she was just acting this way because she thought it was the correct thing to do. In response, she said that she was doing it out of love for me and awareness of her terrible decisions. She cried a lot throughout our lengthy conversation, but not for me. I didn't have any more tears to weep about this, I had already sobbed plenty when I first learned. I then asked her if she had any more information she would like to share with me, or if she had any secrets. She implored me not to become upset and began crying once more. I became somewhat anxious when she mentioned it. She began to cry for a while, but I told her to stop bothering me and just say it. Then it was revealed. She said that shortly after I left, she discovered she was pregnant and that, unsure of the paternity, she had an abortion. She claimed she felt compelled to do it because she believed there would be no possibility of reconciliation if it turned out to be Dave's. What I was hearing was unbelievable. She began to implore me even more not to let this be the end of our relationship, as I was in shock. I simply became numb. She pleaded with me to stay since we still needed to chat when I urged her to go. This whole pleading was really annoying, in addition to the news I just learned. She replied that she was a few weeks along when she discovered she was pregnant when I inquired how far along she was. Then it dawned on me. Hold on. You claimed in an email that you and Dave had only begun having sex a week or so before to my discovery. Was that false? She gave a nod. She nodded, thrusting. She said that she was attempting to downplay it and just stated that because she didn't want to offend me with the specifics. For less than a month, she said. It was physical. I resisted her attempts to comfort me. I urged her to go and never return. She made an attempt to speak, but I simply began shouting for her to get out. After I had absorbed everything, she asked if we could speak again, but I declined. I informed her that as soon as the divorce process started, I would be relocating since I had secured a job in a different state. Throughout our state? After filing, there is a 2-month cooling off period. I was just finishing things up before I quit my present position, but I had previously decided to do this. By that time, I had already notified my supervisor. She heard more of the same sobbing and begging as previously when she heard this. I threatened to call the cops if she didn't leave. I laid on the floor, wondering where I went wrong as she grudgingly departed. In such a short time, how did my marriage reach this point? I just couldn't grasp it. Prior to our conversation, I had some doubts about the divorce. I had never been more certain about my choice. I disregarded Suzanne's repeated attempts to get in touch. But this was on Thursday a couple days ago. My mother called to inform me that Sue was in the hospital. It seems that she overdosed on drugs and ended up in the hospital. All of this seemed like a nightmare. I'm still not sure how to take it all in. Why is this all taking place? I saw Sue at the hospital and she looked to be good, but she was put into a mental unit. That's the current situation. Why she would do this is still a mystery to me. She was also asleep when I went to see her. I still love her, therefore it hurts. And for now, I'm just glad she's all right. I haven't been thinking of the divorce, considering the current situation. What even should I do? I'm definitely omitting a lot of crucial information, but doing so would make this text unmanageably lengthy. All I need is advice on what to do next. Edit. Please add your thoughts as I was unable to respond to the majority of your remarks. The advice would be very helpful to me. Thank to everybody. The third update. Although I had hoped that this would be my final update, I am posting about it one more. It's been roughly 8 months since my life turned into a shit show, and sadly for me, things simply keep getting worse. I'm not going to go into depth, but I hope I can share enough to receive some constructive comments from you on here. You don't realize how helpful you've been. Sue was in a really severe mental state when I last blogged, but thankfully, she recovered after some therapy. I knew I couldn't remain, even though I felt terrible for her. I am aware that many individuals have survived this type of situation, but I am also aware of myself. If I had remained, I'd simply be doing myself and her more damage than good. Even in a few years, I'm likely to still feel some resentment because I'll never be able to move past it. She wanted us to stay in touch, even if it was just briefly, even after we decided to get a divorce. We were divorced about a month ago, and the procedure went quite well. Things were finally beginning to look up for me when I relocated to the West Coast to start over. However, her sister then called me regarding Sue once again. To cut a long tale short, Sue experienced seizures. She can hardly talk and is nearly immobilized on the left side of her body. I can't even begin to describe how heartbreaking it was to hear that, let alone how devastated I was when I visited her. She never resembled the person I knew, and whenever she saw me, she would cry. The fact that I feel like I'm to blame for this happening to her is one of the saddest things about it all. I feel that it is, even when people tell me it isn't. I can feel some animosity from her closest relatives whenever I talk to them, even if they claim it's not my fault. When her aunt spotted me, she swore in front of everyone, and everyone became silent. All they requested was that I move on from it and live my life. Knowing how all of this garbage ended still stings, even if I wish I could simply go on. Since Sue had the stroke, I haven't spoken to her, and her family won't allow me visit because they believe I caused her stress. Since I don't now have the right to know, I don't even know all the specifics. It seems like I never get a break. Screw me.